Welcome to the Bulldog Breakdown, number 2. We're coming off the Vanderbilt win as the Georgia fan base went up and just totally dominated that matchup, Hut. Looked like a home game in Nashville.
Yeah, I was able to catch some of the Twitter videos and the social media videos, and it wasn't even close, right? It was a Nash Vegas UGA edition takeover, so it was a great opportunity to go up see a cool town, but also, you know, allow some of the other SEC fans to just see how well Georgia football fans really travel.
Always nice to win in convincing fashion when it comes to SEC games, especially on the road. But yeah, there's you know, some criticism out there as far as how this Georgia team performed. What do you make overall of the Game 1 performance?
Yeah, I thought what happened and how the game evolved was exactly what I anticipated. Georgia was going to lean on that offensive line. They weren't going to be extremely colorful, might not show a lot in the passing game, and Kirby may not admit that, whether that was done on purpose or not. But I didn't really think you have to get into a lot of the minutia of your offense. I mean, let's keep in mind, 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, you've got Notre Dame coming into town, who's going to be your biggest test. So I think Georgia knew going into the game they could just line up and punish Vanderbilt, and their players across the board were going to be better than Vanderbilt's players. And so you see over 300 yards rushing on the ground. But by far, I think the one takeaway for me is Georgia's offensive line is as advertised, and if not the best in the country.
Right. Overall, I'd give the Georgia fan base an A+ for that performance. As far as the team goes, I'm thinking a solid B overall, a solid B. After Game 1, you're going to see this team improve the most between Game 1 and Game 2. So there's some things to get cleaned up, without a doubt. Let's start about the offense. Start on the offensive side of the ball, Hut, and talk about what we saw. And you know, the thing that you mentioned, and the thing that stood out to me also, is a punishing, physical offensive line. This is a group, especially on the interior, where Big Trey Hill looks like such a force at that center position as a young sophomore player. You got two powerful guards in Solomon Kinley. Then you got two right guards that can punish people, and Cade Mays and Ben Cleveland. I think the interior, and we talk so much about the bookend tackles, but the interior of that offensive line is where Georgia is really special, and that's going to allow them to punish people in the run game.
Yeah.
You put a physical back like Harrion behind that physical offensive line, and that's going to be very special. And I think what we saw out of DeAndre Swift will lead you to believe, too, that here's a guy set for a huge season running and catching the football in this offense.
Yeah, not only did DeAndre Swift, like what I saw to Brian Harrion, Cooks got involved. I think you saw a couple times when his speed got to the perimeter, it could really hit another gear and take off. And going back to your point about the offensive line, you had heard Kirby talk all summer and really in preseason camp about Trey Hill and the center position, Lamont Gilliard last year, Ben Jones a couple years ago, David Andrews. I mean, Georgia has really a nice little lineage going back a couple years of some strong centers, and Trey Hill looks like, as advertised, he's had a great offseason.
I think it's an upgrade
summer
at center.
Yeah, I really do too. So I think he could be, at least after what you saw week 1, Georgia's most improved player. And with him there and knowing where to declare and slide protections, and with Jake Fromm back there in that offense, I mean, people don't understand this, but, and Kirby talked to it about the end of the game, so many people just want to, when they see a quarterback, they want to grade him based off how many yards he throws for, or how many touchdowns.
It's been like that for decades.
How many touchdowns he has. But here's what you get in Trey Hill and the veteran savviness of Jake Fromm is they don't run into bad plays. You know, when DeAndre Swift takes a ball 80 yards to the house, well, half of that is because the quarterback got him into the right look. He didn't run it into an uneven side with 6 defenders. He checked it and went the opposite direction.
Nothing wrong with managing the game, right?
So those are some of the things that I see, and just a great combination of having a center like Trey Hill mentally between the ears who's sharp, along with the marriage of a quarterback who's just as sharp.
Yeah, and the running back position, my goodness, talk about quality depth. When you got Swift and you're coming in with Harrion, you got Cook, who's a big play guy. They got him the ball a little bit. And I like what I saw out of Zamir White also. And I think he's a guy that will get more and more playing time as the season goes on. Zamir White looking good in his first game out. As far as passing the ball, and look, they didn't really need the passing game in this Vanderbilt game. But still, they're going to need it as the season goes on. And I saw Demetrius Robertson step up and look like a go-to guy. He had his best play of the night called back on a bogus holding call, but Robertson looked good to me, and Cager and Landers, and you got the freshman Pickens.
Yep.
Those guys are going to get more comfortable as the weeks go by on the calendar there. They got their feet wet, didn't make a heck of a lot of big plays.
Yeah.
I think we'll see them get better.
Yeah, those were probably the two, I don't know if you want to call them concerns. Probably not, they're not even concerns yet. It was just a lack of explosiveness on offense. But again, that was probably by design. And then number two was short yardage for Georgia. We saw, remember last year, the Florida game comes to mind where Georgia just had some issues on short yardage situations, either converting in the red zone or converting, getting a first down. We saw that kind of rear its ugly head again against Vanderbilt. And I know Kirby mentioned after the game, got a little snippy that, why does it matter? You know, I'm going to focus on the positive. We rushed for over 300 yards. I'm not going to worry about the only 2 yards. But I think for Georgia fans, that's a soft, it's a gentle topic because of the issues from last year. So those were kind of the two things that I thought hopefully Georgia will fix coming up in the next 2 weeks before they play Notre Dame. Yeah,
Jake Fromm, I saw Pro Football Focus rated Fromm the top-rated quarterback coming out of SEC week number 1, which I think the average fan would go, what are you talking about? Did you see Tua throwing that thing around for Alabama? How about Joe Burrow at LSU? How could he have a better rating than those two guys? Well, it's because Pro Football Focus is factoring in these factors like you were talking about, getting the offense in the right play. Staying out of bad plays, being accurate with the football. Jake Fromm looked really sharp in game number 1.
Yeah, he did, and I like the touchdown pass, the only one he threw to the back of the end zone with Demetrius Robertson. I think you just watch Georgia's offense, and anybody with common sense could watch that and go, okay, they're not showing everything. So the people that say, you know, I'm concerned about the passing game, and, you know, I'm concerned. And now, look, I have said, and I've been outspoken, that I need to see more from the receivers from an explosive playness. I want to see the speed. You know, I'm not worried about what you can do versus Vanderbilt or, you know, Arkansas State or Tennessee. I'm worried about the college, Clemson, Alabama. You know, can our receivers go up against that secondary, and can our receivers match really the big three of Clemson and the big three of Alabama? Those are the teams you got to get past. So, but as far as what you take away from Vanderbilt, the lack of explosiveness in the passing game, I think you realize you come away from that and go, okay, they probably were showing 40% of what they've really got in the gun.
Tell you what I want to see to be critical is I want to see the play-action passing game get polished up. Protection wasn't real good. When they went play-action, it seemed as though Fromm was under a little bit more pressure. They got to get that cleaned up because when you run for 300 yards, your play-action pass game has got to be dangerous. So that is one area I need to see James Coley and this offensive staff get things cleaned up as they move into week number 2. Bulldog Breakdown, Buck Belue, Hutson Mason. We'll come back and talk about this Georgia defense coming up next. Buck Belue, Hutson Mason, Bulldog Breakdown coming off the Vanderbilt victory for the Bulldogs. Let's talk about this dog defense. What'd you see, Hut?
Well, I saw a team that held Vanderbilt's big three and limited them to the big explosive plays. There were a lot of talk coming in that this was Coach Mason's best team at Vanderbilt. They've beaten Tennessee 3 times. And, you know, between their running back and the receiver who had over 1,000 yards, Neal, the quarterback from Ball State. I mean, they had some guys who produced last year in the SEC East, but I thought Georgia defensively had a strong game plan. The one concern for me, the one knack I saw was all offseason we heard about havoc, getting to the quarterback more. We didn't see that at all, especially in some passing situations. There were some guys along the defensive line that were credited for half a sack, but no true guy that took over the game like you know you're going to want to see and you know you're going to need out of these defensive end, interior defensive linemen come some of the more bigger important games. So that was probably one positive, and then one thing that I'm kind of eager to see improve very quickly coming up in the next couple weeks.
You know, the thing that really stood out to me about Lanning and Schumann's Bulldog defense was the overall speed of the 11 players on the field, especially when Big 99 is on the sideline. When Big 99's in the game, you got 10 guys that can run. But the overall speed, I think Kirby's where he's at, where he wanted to be when he first arrived defensively as far as the overall speed of the defense. Secondary, you got some guys that can run and flat out play, and you've got some depth there in the secondary. Linebacker, Monty Rice, I think, is a star player on the inside. Yeah. And then these outside linebackers I'll speak about in a moment. But really good speed, chasing down plays, pursuing plays. Defensive line also, I think, doing a really good job up front, limiting that Vandy offense. So the overall speed is something to be excited about. The criticism, the concern for me, I still think the defensive line, looking ahead, is going to be the area where Georgia needs to find some players that will emerge as big-time players. Right now, it seems pretty average up front. Yeah. Maybe Vandy a little bit better on the O-line than I anticipated. But I need to see more out of this defensive line. Gosh, when you get down later in the schedule, you talked about Notre Dame coming up very soon. Quality offensive line I saw for the Fighting Irish in their season opening game. So this defensive line is an area of concern I'll be taking a close look at in the weeks to come.
You mentioned big number 99, Jordan Davis. I think his stamina is a bit of a question. I mean, obviously at 300-plus pounds, that's a lot of weight to move around, especially in the summertime.
360.
Right? And then add on another 15 pounds with your helmet and shoulder pads. And he knows he has to fight and be persistent in staying in shape, and Georgia needs him to be in good shape because, like you mentioned, against Notre Dame, I know that's going to be a night game. Maybe it'll be a little cooler, but you need him in there for at least 2 down. His stamina is so crucial to this defense because he's 340 pounds eating up these big double teams for Notre Dame's offensive line. I'm not for sure who his backup is, but I know it's a big drop-off. So I thought him coming out in some crucial downs was a little bit of something that I noticed, and hopefully he's working hard on his stamina after practice, running a couple extra gassers to stay in shape.
Yeah, I love Big 99. I think he'll be fine when it cools off a little bit. These other defensive linemen, though, I think that's the area, the defensive end, the 3-technique tackle, those are areas where some of these other guys need to emerge. I'm not sure who they are. Walker was impressive, the freshman. 5-star rated defensive lineman that got a little playing time against Vandy. Look out for him. Maybe it's him that will emerge as a real playmaker.
You didn't really see any big bust either. I mean, that's something you see a lot of issues in bust and coverage week 1. Week 1, week 0 is usually really sloppy. We saw that all around college football. But defensively for Georgia, you saw guys line up, execute, only give up 6 points on the road to an SEC opponent. I mean, come on, that's I know we can be ticky-tack about some things sometimes in the media, but overall that was a really strong performance for a defense that is showing some inexperienced guys playing and younger guys out there on the field.
One thing's for certain, you've got to earn your playing time playing for Kirby Smart and his coaching staff. We'd heard a lot of the thing about the cornerbacks, a lot of information. Really unknown about the cornerback spot. Campbell seemed to get the start and play most of the reps. The starting cornerbacks were the same, what we expected. Saw a little of DJ Daniel and Stevenson, the true freshman. Georgia looks to be in pretty good shape at the cornerback spot moving forward with 4 or 5 guys that can actually play.
Yeah, I thought that was their strongest position group coming into the season, both safeties back. I think that you can make an argument that they have the combination of their 2 safeties, one of the best in the SEC, if not the best. And then obviously, you got to replace an All-American on the outside. But those guys, Stevenson, some of those other guys, they played before, so they're not completely raw and green.
All right, so Bulldog defense has got some growing to do, especially in that front 7 moving forward prior to the Fighting Irish showing up at Sanford Stadium. Coming up later this week, Georgia will host Murray State. Big weekend for Hall of Famer Vince Dooley. We'll speak about that coming up next here on the Bulldog Breakdown. Be a part of radio history here in Atlanta by securing the 680 The Fan 25th Anniversary Retro T-shirt, like Hutson Mason and I are wearing right now.
Great thing is all proceeds will go to a great cause. Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, all the great folks over there will benefit from it. You can get your shirt and hat, trucker hat. That's always great for the summertime. 680thefan.com/retrobuck. People may get that confused with Metro because we're going to look so good in it.
Don't fool around. Do it now and be looking good. All right, first game in Athens coming up on Saturday. Murray State showing up, but all the focus will be on Hall of Fame coach Vince Dooley, who will get an honor that is not bestowed on many as you look across the Southeast, although it is a trend when you look around.
Steve Spurrier recently, isn't it?
Yeah, Pat Dye Field over at Jordan-Hare in Auburn. You got Spurrier Field at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium down in Jacksonville, and now we'll have Vince Dooley Field at Sanford Stadium. This is my coach, Hut, and let me tell you, Coach Dooley, now he was tough. He was a tough man to please. You think Coach Rick and Coach Bobo were tough on you, man.
I never thought Coach Rick was tough to please. Mike Bobo,
yeah, Bobo, I heard some of those stories. But Coach Dooley, I think most of the Bulldog players that played for him operated with a little bit of fear.
Walking on eggshells.
You know, a tough guy to please. But, you know, he was a man that I had total respect of as I joined the program. In fact, going through that recruiting process, I heard a lot of lies being told, and you know, it got down to who can you trust. And Vince Dooley was a man I had no problem trusting, and he lived up to everything he had ever told me. You're going to come in here and earn it. We're going to give you an opportunity. You get a chance. You outperform the other guy. You'll be the player. You'll be able to play baseball, which was huge with me. I trusted Vince Dooley and totally enjoyed playing under he and his coaching staff during those years I was in Athens. He not only was the head coach for 25 plus years, but also the athletic director for many of those years also, and a guy that had an interest in all of the sports programs doing well at UGA. So I'm very pleased to see him receive this honor. It's been long overdue and well-deserved.
Yeah, I think when you just mentioned Georgia, the University of Georgia, put sports aside, I think he's maybe the most iconic figure that comes to mind. Obviously, Herschel and some of the, Dominique Wilkins, Irk Russell. But I mean, Vince is up there in all the SEC championships, the accolades that he accomplished. Quite frankly, when I heard this and they announced this, I thought, man, what took so long? You know, and this is a guy that has earned his keep and everything he's accomplished for the University of Georgia. He's been a great ambassador, and it's definitely past his time to be awarded something like this.
Yeah, just the impact that he's made on UGA. You try to find other people that have made this kind of impact, as you're mentioning, and it's a very short list. So it'll be a great day on Saturday with Murray State in town, pregame ceremony, so don't be late to your seat. I'm so proud to be one of the captains representing one of his teams prior to the game, so looking forward to being there between the hedges again, representing that 1981 SEC Bulldog team my senior year. Coach Dooley, we're proud of you. Great job, and we're so happy for this coming your way. Just a great thing to see. All right, coming up next week, Arkansas State.
Red Wolves.
So, yeah,
another
big underdog coming into town. We'll look forward to breaking it down. It's the Bulldog Breakdown with Belue and Hutson Mason. Have a great Bulldog week, everybody.